Sure, yes, please. You might get a little window on your screen that says something about recording. Okay. All right, let me open with prayer, and then I'll share my screen with you all, and then we'll kind of get rolling. And usually what happens is people kind of trickle in, so I'll have to keep a half an eye on that as well. All right, let's pray real quick. Dear Lord, thanks for bringing us together from all parts of Colorado, and just pray for this trip ahead of time. I know it seems like a long ways away, but it'll be here before we know it. And we just pray a blessing on the trip, that it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's interesting. It's a way to honor and glorify you, meet some new friends, and hang out in your creation. In your name we pray. Amen. Awesome. All right. Let me share my screen here real quick. Okay. Cool. Everybody see that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, here we go. So let me just kind of give an overview of the idea behind our trips, just in general, because we do have a 7th and an 8th grade trip as well. They all happen on the same week of school, and the 6th grade trip is 3 days, the 7th grade trip is 4 days, and the 8th grade trip is the full 5 days. So really the idea behind that, and the reason we do them at this time of year, one is for many, many, many years, we would do we always did our 7th grade trip. So I've been doing the 7th grade trip for a couple of decades at least. And we've always done that in the fall, just because that's how it lines up with Camp Adrahaji's schedule. What we used to do is we would have these trips in the spring, the other trips, the 6th grade trip, and then we've done an 8th grade trip for about 20 years, and then the 6th grade trip is relatively new. And what we found, that in the spring, a couple things. One is the weather was way less predictable in the spring than it is in the fall. Fall here is usually predictable. End of September, it's a little more of a question mark, but overall, we just found that the weather in that kind of early fall, late summer, the weather's really good. So that's why we shifted it to this. The other thing we noticed, in the spring when we were doing the trips, then we noticed that when the students came back, there were like all these new friendships, and then we were noticing that kids that never hung out together throughout the entire school year, all of a sudden they're hanging out together, and school ends in a month, because we kind of did them in April. And so we kind of noticed that over a few years, and then we decided that, you know what, the weather's better. And enrollment is a big entry point for DC is 6th grade. So let's sort of combine the idea of sort of this bonding, launching into the year experience, like sort of that piece, and then also the beautiful weather. And so it just made a lot more sense for us to just kind of permanently move all of them into the spring, or into the fall, kind of that late summer, early fall. And then also the end of the year, kind of April and May, it's just a crazy time of year on top of the crazy weather. And so it just didn't make any sense to kind of keep it there. So anyway, that's kind of the reason for the timing of these. So segue, the idea on this trip is obviously to get up into the beautiful mountains of Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park and all of that. I mean, it's in our backyard, but it's actually quite surprising how many of our students are, even the native students, maybe they've been to Rocky Mountain one time, you know, and believe it or not, they don't go up there very often. And um, and so we want to kind of encourage that. They've been to the mountains, like they go skiing, like they've been to Winter Park or Keystone or Breck or whatever, but not necessarily, one of the greatest national parks in the country, even though it's in our backyard. So that's part of it, is kind of expose them to that. And then also, like I said, that bonding experience, the group that we work with, Simply Venture, they're a neat Christian. It's run by a Christian family. Lance, one of he owns it. Lance and Sasha own it. Lance is actually a really good friend of mine, so there's a really neat connection there. In fact, he lives like 2 minutes from me, so we see each other quite a bit. And he's just a neat Christian guy who has a heart for this type of ministry. He used to be a teacher. So he was a teacher for a long time, and he started doing these trips kind of on the side, and then it just boomed into his business. So he really leads a great trip. He's got a great heart for kids. He's so much fun. He's funny. He's faithful. He's really, really a neat dude. So let me kind of advance here. So here's kind of a little more in depth, right? The focus of the experience. So hiking, many of our students, they love soccer and play the piano and they love to go skiing, but they don't necessarily go hiking very often. So it's to provide an opportunity for that. And then of course, just different nature programs and being out there and playing, just regular old unstructured play. And then the reflection, that's really important on these trips, is sort of and really this trip, it's the couple of nights that they're away, it's sort of reflecting back on the day. And it could be as simple as, did you meet someone new today? And just sort of reflecting back on that. And then team building, again, getting together. So again, back to the timing of the trip. So the timing of the trip, they've been in school for a month. And so when we go into these team building and relationship building and collaborating with our peers, those last three, they at least know a bunch of names, right? They may not be like best friends yet, but they at least know some names. And so that sort of greases the skids for the relationship building versus doing it like immediately out of the gate, where maybe you don't really know many of the names of your peers and classmates. So that's kind of part of that, right? So these are just general timing. And so the students will get to school at the regular time on Wednesday. And they will just leave all our stuff out in that, we call it the corral. It's that big cement area by Carline. So the students will get dropped off. They'll just leave their stuff down there. And then we'll load the buses down there and we take off. And I got another person that wants in. And then I'm not going to go through every single list here, but you get the idea. So initially in the morning, they go for a hike, and then there's a picnic lunch. And then you kind of finish the drive up to Estes Park, and they get kind of settled into YMCA the Rockies, which is where they're going to stay, and they do some game room time and team building and dinner, and then roller skating. And then it depends, like, so this campfire, we've been able to have the campfire pretty much on every trip. Sometimes, with the wildfire situation, that gets tweaked a little bit. They have to change that a little bit. But rarely has that happened on our trip. So, and then lights out at 10, and you'll have students. I mean, this is a long day. I mean, by the time they they go lights out. Their lights are out. I mean, like they're tired. And then they get up. And by the way, they eat really well on this trip. Like they eat really, really well on this trip. Have breakfast, and then they head out into Rocky Mountain National Park and the Alberta Falls, Glacier, Nymph, Dream, Emerald, Hiyaha Lakes Trail. So they go on these beautiful hikes, and the hikes are not, it's not like you're going up Mount Everest or anything like that. They're challenging, but they're not just overwhelming. It's great because like you can hang out with your buddies and you're just kind of laughing as you're hiking up and down, and the teachers are on the trip, so you're getting to know your teachers are getting to know the students. And so these hikes are just the perfect amount of kind of difficulty, but yet not too difficult, where you can kind of concentrate on hanging out with your buds and chatting. And then you head back to camp kind of later in the afternoon, and then another person wants in. And then kind of later in the afternoon, return to camp, mini golf, swimming, dinner, gym games, and then again, sort of that building connectivity again, campfire, reflection, games. Like one of the first times we did these trips, I'll never forget. One of Lance's employees brought his guitar, and we just sort of had these impromptu singing. And I can't sing, but around the campfire, it's really fun to sing. And when all the kids are singing, because you pick these common songs, it's actually really, really fun. And again, you're super tired. And so let me just pause on that. So one of the things at the end of each day with the 2 reflection times, one of the things that fatigue does is it sort of it kind of increases your vulnerability a little bit. You kind of let your guard down a little bit, and there's some room for the Holy Spirit to kind of do some stuff in the kids' hearts and in the teachers' hearts and the leaders' hearts. So it's a really special time, like I said, especially kind of when you're tired. You're just more relaxed, and different things, different conversations can occur, and it's really a special time. And then next day, they have breakfast and they take off from Estes Park and they head down to Chatfield Reservoir. Yes, the one that's close to school. Stand-up paddleboards, kayak, swim, slackline, hammock. There's a big old grill that Lance has, and do a grill out, and then we start heading back to school about 2:15, probably closer to 2. And then the students can jump right into Carline. The question that we get asked all the time is, can I pick my student up from Chatfield? The answer is yes, that is fine, but we have to do it in an orderly fashion. And so we will send out a form, but we won't send that form out until August, when we start reaching back out to you all about these trips. And then you just fill out the form that says you're going to pick up your kiddo at Chatfield right there. It's basically at the swim beach. And then everybody else piles in the buses and heads back to DC, and we get picked up. So that's the general thing. Okay. A couple things to think about the packing list. Closed-toed shoes, like we're not wearing sandals for 3 days, right? You're going to be hiking. On all 3 of our trips, they involve some type of hiking, outdoor adventure type stuff. All 3 of our trips, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade trips. And the one thing that I always recommend is some type of like a running shoe, not like Vans or Chuck Taylor, Converse, nothing that's like heavy canvas or anything like that, because if they get wet, they just stay wet forever. Whereas running shoes tend to dry out a little bit quicker. Plus they're awesome for hiking, walking long distances. They're great. Okay. That's usually my recommendation, is some type of running shoe. And then again, 3 days appropriate for adventure. I always say, if it's a 3-day adventure trip, I would pack for 4 days, bring, an extra day's worth just in case something gets super wet or anything like that. And then a hat of some sort, I recommend. We've had students that they don't wear a hat, and their face gets, really burned from the sun or something like that. And so I recommend a hat. And then pajamas, you just got to keep in mind that you're kind of in a dorm with others. So sleepwear, I highly recommend, like sweatpants and a long sleeve shirt or something like that. So that's just kind of a recommendation. Personal items, pretty straightforward. Day pack, a lot of students empty their school backpacks, leave all their school stuff, and they just use their school backpack as their backpack for those days. You're not bringing like a Arc'teryx 70, um, whatever, those big giant packs you use to in the backwoods for 2 weeks. You don't need anything like that. Just a regular old backpack is good. And then a water bottle. Oh, a water bottle. You've got to bring a water bottle. Water bottle, water bottle. Okay, that's really important. Some students bring a headlamp or a flashlight, some don't. It's up to you. Sunscreen for sure. Sleeping bag for sure. And then the sack lunch, you got to bring that for day one. So that first day when the drive up, students need like a brown bag lunch. So that's really important. And then this is all three of our trips are no tech trips. All three trips, no technology whatsoever. Some students, you'll notice that bullet point at the bottom. You can bring like a point and shoot camera, like a digital camera. Great, awesome. We have students that do that all the time. So that is no problem at all. We have students that do that every single year. They bring just kind of the old, quote unquote, old fashioned digital camera. All the teachers are going to have their phones with them just from a safety perspective. I mean, it's only 3 days, so it's good. I sent from kindergarten on up, I sent my kids to Adrahaji for 5 days. No, nothing. They just were like, they might as well have been on the moon, and it was fantastic, and they're still alive, so it's okay. They came back, had a great week. So anyway, point and click, we'll have phones, emergency, as needed, we'll be able to communicate. And again, we're only up in Estes. Couple of things, kind of these soft skills. That first bullet point, I really encourage that. To begin to own this trip. It's yours. And this is to the students. Own the trip, make it yours, go earn the money on your own. Whether it's raking leaves, mowing lawns, babysitting, picking up poop in the backyard, doing the dishes. You can get lemonade stands. We've had students do lemonade stands. I mean, there's 101 ways to earn these dollars, but my recommendation is that, and my wife would agree because our kids did this on these trips, they should pay for the trip. It's their trip. It's a different trip if they pay for it. You just got to trust me on that. It's a better trip and it's a better experience. And then that second bullet point, start to pray for yourself and your classmates. And some classmates you haven't met yet. Some you're going to meet over the summer. Some you'll meet in August on New Student Orientation Day, August 14. But just start to pray for that and the relationships that you're going to start to build. Okay. And pray for the new sixth graders. So the students that are at DC now, there's going to be a lot of students coming in new to DC, and we should pray for them and pray that this trip does exactly what we want it to do, and that is build a community of sixth graders, like one cohesive unit. There's the trip cost is down there. That's everything, transportation, the whole 9 yards. That's everything. But again, I highly recommend the students pay for that on their own. Do the first week of school. It's just easier if we're not sort of chasing y'all down for that. So if we can just get that taken care of, that'd be great. The registration and everything for the paying actually opens next week. And then the registration for the trip is, I think it's on my last slide, if I'm not mistaken. And then DC and Simply Venture will provide all transportation to and from. So we're going to take buses and vans and things like that. So we'll take care of all the transportation up and back. And yep, that's it. Okay. So yeah, so I think I can't click on that, but nonetheless, simplyventure.net. And if you don't have to write that down, I'm going to send this out with the links and everything, so don't worry about it. But that is where the registration link is for Simply Venture. So you have to register, and then there's a different link to pay. So there's two different links. So you're going to go on and register with Simply Venture, and then the link that I send to pay, those will be two separate links. So you kind of have to do two things, okay? If you do have any questions of any sort or need assistance, you can just hit that link, that go at simplyventure.net. For example, and I don't know if they ask you this on registration, but like if you've got some food allergies or anything like that, that's important. Here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Some folks, you'll have like meds that have to go on the trip. We take care of all of that. We're trained through Children's Hospital, and so we manage all of that. And so like from the meds perspective, even if you want to just send Advil, like you're worried about the Advil piece, there has to be some type of prescription from your doctor. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. It's just a liability piece, and with about 90 some students, we just have to be able to track that and be real responsible about that. Trying to think what other questions I get often. Oh, the another thing that is cool is over the last few years, we've had some high school seniors from Denver Christian. They attend the trip as sort of these junior chaperones, and it is amazing. So there's about 4 to 6 of them that go on the trip, and they are so cool. They apply to go through, they apply to Dr. K, our high school principal. And then he selects them. And what's fun is, for the most part, I know them, right? Because they were in middle school with me. And so now that they're seniors and they're out doing this trip versus going on the trip, it's just kind of a fun thing. So anyway, they're really cool. It's a neat little piece, and we only do it on the 6th grade trip. We do not do that on the 7th, 8th grade trip. So that was a lot. Do you have any questions? You can just unmute and ask. If it's a real specific question related to like your world that maybe isn't best for the whole group, maybe you and I can just find a time on the phone, in the next day or so to connect. But any questions?
Are the chaperones just the teachers outside of the students?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we're kicking around the idea. That's a great question. We're kicking around the idea of parent chaperones just because of the numbers, but we're not quite sure on that yet. So don't hold my feet to the fire on that one. Any other questions? Really?
You're gonna make it to your Avs game.
Yes.
Go Avs.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other schools at the camp or any other kids, or it's just strictly DC kids and DC teachers?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember other schools ever being there when we're there. That would be new to me. But that could be that could be a Simply Venture email. I don't know the answer to that. Typically, we've been the only ones, but that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Anything else, gang? Wow. Okay, so next steps. All right. So next steps are I'm going to upload this video. I'll get it uploaded to my site. I'll get the link. I'm going to send you the slide presentation. I'm going to send you the recording. I'm going to send you the Simply Venture link. And then next week, I will send you the pay link. You don't have to, there's not an emergency on that. We got a long time yet, right? August is a long ways away. So, and then my challenge to the students, if you remember, that basically 2 challenges. One is pray for yourselves and your classmates, right? Number 1. Number 2, start earning the dollars on your own by however you want to do it. You get creative, get your entrepreneurial hat on, and start generating some dollars. And like, people are probably starting to mow their lawns now, and just start socking that stuff away. And you just got to trust me. It's going to be a better trip. Got to trust me on that. Okay. We good? All
We're
right.
good.
Awesome. All right, y'all. And take care. We'll talk to you later. And for all y'all in DC 5th grade, I'll probably see you out of field day. All right. Later, all.